You know that feeling when something quietly settles inside you. Without you doing anything at all, tonight, we are going to understand exactly where that feeling lives, what it is made of, and why your mind and body have always known how to find it. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep, wherever you are right now, perhaps already lying down, perhaps feeling the weight of the day beginning to ease from your shoulders. Let yourself stay exactly there. We will follow 100 psychology facts about well-being and the science of feeling whole. From the quiet chemistry of contentment to the hidden architecture of a flourishing mind, to what peace actually looks like inside the brain. These calm journeys through the science of healing build bridges between minds that are searching for rest. A gentle like, a soft subscribe, or sharing this with someone who needs it creates a pathway for more tired hearts to find their way here. 2. One small kindness. One sleepy soul at a time. Your peace matters here. Let yourself settle completely now. Feel your jaw soften, your breath slow on its own. You do not need to hold on to any of this. Let these thoughts move through you, the way warmth moves through a quiet room. Arriving gently, asking nothing, leaving you a little softer than before. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You are resting where the mind remembers how to be gentle with itself. Let your thoughts release like tension, leaving a hand you did not know was clenched. And now we begin. Well-being is not simply the absence of suffering. Scientists who study positive psychology have found that flourishing is its own distinct state, with its own measurable qualities, its own brain patterns, and its own biological markers. When you flourish, something specific and verifiable is happening inside you. The field of well-being science began to take shape in the 1980s when researchers started asking not just what makes people sick, but what makes them genuinely, sustainably well. What emerged was a portrait of the human mind at its best. Not perfect, not painless, but deeply alive and oriented toward meaning. Well-being, it turns out, is a direction as much as a destination. And tonight, we will trace that direction together, slowly, gently, until you find it here. The brain's reward system responds differently to two kinds of happiness. Researchers distinguish between hedonic well-being, which is the pleasure of positive experiences, and eudaimonic well-being, which is the deeper sense of living a meaningful life. When brain imaging studies compare the two, they show distinct patterns of neural activity. Hedonic happiness tends to activate areas associated with immediate reward. Eudaimonic well-being, the kind rooted in purpose and connection, activates regions linked to integration, social bonding, and long-term motivation. Both matter. Both are real. But research suggests that the deeper, quieter form of well-being, the kind built from meaning rather than pleasure, tends to be more stable across time. It is worth noticing which kind you are reaching for. In the small choices of each ordinary day, happiness is not simply an emotion. It is also a biochemical state. 4 key neurochemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins shape the experience of well-being by regulating very different dimensions of inner life. Dopamine governs motivation and reward, the feeling of moving toward something. Serotonin steadies mood and promotes calm. Oxytocin deepens connection and trust. Endorphins buffer pain and encourage resilience. These molecules do not work in isolation. They interact in ways science is still mapping, each one influencing the others in subtle, ongoing conversations. The body is always managing this chemistry, always adjusting, always working toward balance. And right now, as you rest, that quiet work continues without your instruction. The left prefrontal cortex is associated with positive emotions and approach behavior. Decades of neuroscience research have linked greater activation in this region with higher levels of reported well-being, resilience, and emotional recovery. People with more baseline activity in the left prefrontal cortex tend to bounce back from adversity more quickly. They also tend to report more frequent positive emotions, not because their lives contain fewer difficulties, but because their brains return to equilibrium more readily. This is not a fixed trait. Research in neuroplasticity shows that the balance of activation between left and right prefrontal regions can change with experience, practice, and attention. The brain that notices the good more often gradually becomes better at noticing the good. That is a quiet and genuinely beautiful fact. Serotonin, sometimes called the calm contentment molecule, is produced largely not in the brain but in the gut. Roughly 90% of the body's serotonin is made in the digestive system. The gut and brain are in constant bidirectional communication through the vagus nerve and other pathways, a connection called the gut-brain axis. This means that what you eat, how you sleep, and even the health of the microorganisms in your intestines can influence your mood and sense of well-being. Research suggests that gut bacteria actively participate in serotonin production. The feeling of internal ease, the quiet steadiness of a settled mind, is partly a function of invisible organisms doing their patient work far below conscious awareness. Your well-being is genuinely a whole-body phenomenon. Dopamine is not the pleasure molecule. It is the anticipation molecule. Brain imaging research shows that dopamine spikes most strongly before a reward is received, not after. It is the neurochemical of motivation, of reaching, of being pulled forward by the possibility of something good. This distinction matters for well-being. A life that is always chasing the next reward can exhaust the dopamine system. A life with goals that genuinely matter, with progress that feels real, tends to keep the dopamine pathways healthy and responsive. The science suggests that meaning and direction may be more nourishing to the brain's reward system than pleasure alone. You don't need to feel happy all the time. You need to feel like you are moving towards something that matters to you. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, is released during moments of physical warmth, eye contact, and genuine trust. It lowers the levels of stress hormones in the blood, reduces heart rate, and promotes a sense of safety. Research shows it is also released during simple acts of kindness, both given and received. When you care for someone and feel that your care is welcome, when you are gentle with another person and feel their gentleness in return, oxytocin flows. It is the chemistry of belonging. And the remarkable thing is that the brain does not require a partner or a crowd to access this chemistry. Even recalling a moment of genuine connection, Even imagining the warmth of being truly seen by someone can shift oxytocin levels in a measurable direction. Belonging, in some form, lives in memory. Endorphins are the body's natural pain relief system, released in response to physical exertion, laughter, and certain kinds of deep social bonding. The word endorphin comes from endogenous morphine, meaning a morphine-like substance made inside the body. During aerobic exercise, endorphin release contributes to what researchers call the runner's high, a state of calm euphoria that can persist for minutes or hours after the activity ends. But endorphins are not only activated by physical effort. Genuine, sustained laughter triggers endorphin release. So does singing in a group, which may help explain the ancient human practice of communal music. Well-being has many doors. The body is always offering one or another, quietly, without announcement. Martin Seligman, one of the founders of positive psychology, proposed a framework called PERMA to describe the essential elements of flourishing. The 5 pillars are positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Research across thousands of participants and dozens of cultures has consistently supported the idea that well-being is multidimensional, that no single element is sufficient on its own. You can have great pleasure and still feel empty. You can achieve without feeling fulfilled. The model suggests that a flourishing life tends to draw from several of these sources at once. Not perfectly, not consistently, but in a kind of ongoing weaving, knowing what your well-being actually needs. Which thread is missing or thin right now may be one of the most quietly useful things you ever discover about yourself. Research on well-being has uncovered what scientists call the adaptation principle. Human beings are remarkably good at returning to a baseline level of happiness after both positive and negative events. Lottery winners, studies have found, return to approximately their previous happiness levels within a year or two of their windfall. People who experience serious injuries similarly tend to adapt in ways that surprise outside observers. This adaptation, while sometimes frustrating, points to a kind of fundamental resilience in the human system. It also suggests that chasing large external changes as the route to lasting happiness may be working against the brain's own tendencies. The science of well-being points increasingly toward internal conditions. What you attend to, what you practice, what meaning you make, as the more durable levers of lasting flourishing. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to physically change its structure in response to experience, is one of the most significant discoveries in modern neuroscience. The brain you have tonight is not the brain you had 10 years ago. Its white matter has changed. Its synaptic connections have been pruned and strengthened. Its regions have slightly shifted in relative size and activity based on what you have practiced, attended to, and repeated. Research shows that even a few weeks of consistent positive practice, whether mindfulness, gratitude, or compassion training, can produce measurable changes in brain regions associated with emotional regulation and self-awareness. This is not metaphorical. These changes can be seen in brain scans. What you practice grows stronger. What you gently attend to, you become. The concept of flow, first described by psychologist Mihaly, refers to a state of complete absorption in a challenging and meaningful activity. During flow, people report losing track of time, feeling effortless competence, and experiencing deep satisfaction. Csikszentmihalyi spent decades interviewing artists, surgeons, chess players, and rock climbers, looking for what made certain experiences intrinsically rewarding. What he found was a consistent pattern. Flow arises at the edge between challenge and skill, where a task is demanding enough to require full engagement, but not so difficult as to create anxiety. Flow is now understood as a genuine and measurable state, robustly linked in research to well-being, mental health, and life satisfaction. The brain in flow is not resting, but it is at peace. Gratitude activates specific regions of the brain associated with reward, moral cognition, and interpersonal bonding. Brain imaging studies show that when people genuinely feel and express gratitude, activity increases in the medial prefrontal cortex and related regions. Gratitude also downregulates the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, reducing the sense of urgency and threat that often underlies anxiety. Research published as recently as 2025 confirms that regular gratitude practice is associated with better sleep quality, reduced psychological distress, and improved health behaviors. In a 2024 study in the Journal of Positive Psychology, participants who extended their sleep time by just 46 minutes per night showed significantly higher gratitude scores than those with restricted sleep. Gratitude and rest appear to nourish each other in a quiet, ongoing cycle. The body's stress response, mediated by the hormone cortisol, evolved to help us survive immediate physical threats. But the modern brain activates this same system in response to social threats, uncertain futures, and the noise of unprocessed worry. Chronic cortisol elevation is associated with disrupted sleep, impaired memory, reduced immune function, and lower reported well-being. What lowers cortisol? Physical warmth, trusted social contact, purposeful breathing, and the quiet removal of unresolved decisions before sleep. The practice of setting things down, consciously and with intention, before you rest, is not merely comfort. It is physiology. It changes the chemistry of the night. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in the body, running from the brainstem down through the neck, chest, and abdomen, connecting the brain to the heart, lungs, and gut. It is the primary pathway of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest counterpart to the stress response. Higher vagal tone, meaning a more responsive and active vagus nerve, is associated with better emotional regulation, greater resilience to stress, and higher levels of reported well-being. Activities that increase vagal tone include slow, rhythmic breathing, humming, singing, cold water on the face, and moments of genuine social warmth. The body has a built-in channel toward calm. It runs the length of you, from throat to belly, always available, always listening. Research on positive emotions has identified what psychologist Barbara Fredrickson calls the broaden and build effect. When people experience positive emotions, even mild ones, their attention broadens. They see more possibilities, think more creatively, and notice more of the good in their environment. Over time, these broadened states build lasting resources, stronger relationships, greater resilience, more flexible thinking. Negative emotions narrow attention, which is useful in a crisis, but positive emotions expand it, which is useful for a flourishing life. The implications are quiet but significant, generating even small, genuine positive feelings. Not forced happiness, but real moments of warmth, curiosity, or gratitude. Gradually reshapes what the mind is able to see. Self-compassion, the practice of treating yourself with the same gentleness you would offer a close friend, has emerged in recent research as a powerful predictor of both well-being and sleep quality. A 2025 study published in a major psychological journal found that self-compassion predicted improvements in sleep quality measured across multiple days. The researchers found that better sleep, in turn, predicted greater self-compassion the following day, creating a gentle upward cycle. Self-compassion is defined along 3 dimensions: self-kindness, the recognition of common humanity or shared suffering, and mindful awareness of painful thoughts without over-identifying with them. None of these require perfection. All of them require only a certain quality of attention, the kind you are offering yourself right now, by choosing to rest. The Harvard study of adult development is one of the longest-running studies of human well-being in history, tracking participants for more than 80 years across multiple generations. Its consistent finding is this: the quality of your relationships is the single most important predictor of long-term well-being, health, and longevity. Not wealth, not fame, not achievement. The warmth and reliability of connection. People with close, trusted relationships in midlife live longer, stay healthier, and report higher well-being in old age than those who are isolated, regardless of other circumstances. The data, gathered over decades, points the same direction every time. We are wired for each other. Isolation is not merely uncomfortable. It registers in the body as threat. Loneliness has become one of the most pressing public health conversations of our time, with global research consistently describing it as a quiet, widespread condition with serious health consequences. In 2025, the World Health Organization published a landmark report on social connection, noting that chronic isolation carries health consequences that, in some large-scale analyses of mortality data, appear comparable in scale to the effects of long-term smoking. The United States Surgeon General has issued a formal advisory recognizing loneliness as a significant public health concern. Research involving millions of participants shows that social isolation is an independent predictor of cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and mental health conditions. The brain, which evolved within communities, experiences isolation as a chronic low-level threat. Connection is not a luxury. For the nervous system, it is a structural requirement. Mindfulness meditation, defined as the practice of attending to present-moment experience without judgment, produces measurable changes in brain structure and function, A 2024 systematic review in a peer-reviewed journal confirmed that mindfulness practice increases cortical thickness in regions associated with attention and self-awareness, reduces reactivity in the amygdala, and improves functional connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and limbic system. Even relatively short mindfulness programs, 8 weeks in duration, show these neurobiological effects. A 2025 study from Vanderbilt University found that focused attention meditation stimulates the brain's cerebrospinal fluid circulation in ways that mirror patterns seen during sleep, suggesting a possible role in supporting the brain's natural clearing processes. Sitting quietly with your own breath is not nothing. It is a form of repair. The science of meaning is its own growing field within psychology. Research consistently finds that people who report a strong sense of meaning in life have better health outcomes, sleep more soundly, recover from adversity more effectively, and live longer than those who do not. Meaning appears to buffer the brain against the harmful effects of stress. It does not remove difficulty. It changes the way difficulty is processed. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps and founded the field of logotherapy, observed that those who could find or maintain a sense of purpose were more likely to survive conditions of extreme suffering. Meaning, he concluded, is a primary human need, as fundamental as food or warmth. The search for it is not indulgence. It is biology. Positive psychology researchers have identified a phenomenon called the peak end rule. When people remember an experience, they tend to weight the most intense moment and the ending disproportionately more than the overall duration. A painful medical procedure remembered with a calm ending is recalled as less unpleasant than a shorter one that ended abruptly. This has implications for how well-being is experienced and constructed. It suggests that how experiences end, how conversations close, how days conclude, matters enormously for how we carry those moments forward. Ending the day gently, with intention, shapes the memory of the day itself. The quiet ritual of lying down, releasing the hours, and allowing the mind to settle may be one of the most quietly nourishing daily acts available to any human being. Nature exposure has measurable effects on well-being through multiple physiological pathways. Spending time in natural environments, even urban parks, lowers cortisol levels, reduces blood pressure, improves mood, and decreases activity in the prefrontal cortex region associated with rumination. In Japan, the practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, has been studied extensively. Research shows that even 20 minutes in a natural setting significantly reduces stress markers in the body. The sensory qualities of nature, its particular light, its irregular sounds, its visual complexity without demand, appear to offer the nervous system something it specifically needs and rarely receives in modern environments. Even the memory of a natural place can activate some of these same physiological shifts. A forest, imagined clearly enough, begins to calm the body in measurable ways. Laughter activates the same neural reward pathways as other pleasurable experiences, triggering the release of endorphins and promoting social bonding through oxytocin. Research published in biological anthropology journals suggests that shared laughter may have been an evolutionary precursor to speech. a way of building social trust and group cohesion before complex language existed. Today, laughter continues to serve this function. People who laugh together form stronger social bonds, are more likely to trust each other, and report higher levels of well-being. Laughter also has direct physiological benefits. It increases immune function, reduces the perception of pain, and shifts the autonomic nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance. The state of rest. A body that has laughed recently is a body that is healing. Hope is not merely optimism. It is a cognitive structure. Research by psychologist Charles Snyder defined hope as composed of two elements: willpower, the sense that you can move toward a goal, and way power, the ability to find or imagine routes toward that goal. People with higher hope scores show greater resilience, better physical and mental health, and higher well-being than those with lower hope. Even when external circumstances are similar, hope is trainable. It can be learned and cultivated through small acts of intentional goal setting, through noticing what paths remain open, through staying close to people who help you see what is still possible. The brain, given something to move toward, navigates more smoothly through whatever lies between here and there. Let us pause here for a moment and simply notice your body. Right now, in the quiet of this room, trillions of cells are engaged in the oldest process your biology knows, preparing you for rest. Your nervous system is shifting tone. Your muscles are releasing their held tension. Your breathing is slowing on its own, not because you instructed it to, but because the body knows. Every cell in your body has rested before. This is not new. This is ancient. You are doing the most familiar thing a living being can do. You are returning to your natural state. Now we continue. The relationship between well-being and sleep is bidirectional. Positive emotions improve sleep quality, and good sleep, in turn, makes positive emotions more accessible the following day. Research using sleep restriction studies finds that even modest reductions in nightly sleep, as little as 37 minutes, lead to measurable decreases in gratitude, resilience, and positive affect. People who sleep well are not simply luckier. Their emotional systems are better regulated, their stress hormones more balanced, their capacity for patience and connection more available. Sleep is not the reward for a good day. It is the foundation from which a good day becomes possible. You are doing exactly the right thing tonight. The default mode network is a set of brain regions that become active when we are not focused on external tasks. During rest, daydreaming, and self-reflection. For much of neuroscience's history, this network was considered inactive or irrelevant. Now researchers understand that it is deeply involved in social cognition, autobiographical memory, imagining the future, and constructing the narrative sense of self. When the default mode network is overactive and poorly regulated, it is associated with rumination, anxiety, and depression. When it is balanced and well connected to the prefrontal cortex, it supports self-understanding, creativity, and well-being. Interestingly, experienced meditators show distinct patterns of default mode activity, suggesting that how we relate to our own resting mind matters as much as what we think during it. Psychological flexibility. The ability to stay present with difficult feelings without being controlled by them, while continuing to move toward values, is one of the most reliably predictive psychological factors in well-being research. Studies show that greater psychological flexibility is associated with lower rates of depression and anxiety, higher life satisfaction, and better health behaviors. It is the opposite of rigidity and the opposite of avoidance. It is the capacity to hold what is hard without being consumed by it, to feel without becoming the feeling. Acceptance and commitment approaches to mental health that train psychological flexibility have shown consistent benefits across many populations. The willingness to allow experience to be what it is, without demanding it be otherwise, is itself a form of resilience. Research on character strengths, conducted through the Values in Action Institute, has identified 24 character strengths that appear cross-culturally in human beings, including curiosity, kindness, love, bravery, creativity, and gratitude. Studies show that identifying and deliberately using your signature strengths, the ones that feel most naturally your own, in new ways, is reliably associated with increased well-being and decreased depression. The effect is not trivial. In some studies, identifying and using one signature strength per day for a week produced well-being benefits that lasted several months. You already have what the science is describing. The invitation is simply to notice it, name it, and let it breathe. The neuroscience of compassion has become an active area of research in recent years. Studies using functional brain imaging find that when people practice compassion, activating genuinely warm concern for others, activity increases in regions associated with reward, affiliation, and positive affect. Compassion training appears to strengthen these neural circuits over time. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin have found that even brief compassion meditation practices produce changes in brain activity associated with prosocial motivation. Notably, compassion for oneself activates similar regions to compassion for others. The brain does not distinguish between kindness given and kindness received in the way we might expect. Care flows both directions through the same circuitry. The gut contains approximately 500 million neurons, a network so extensive that scientists sometimes call it the second brain. This enteric nervous system operates largely independently of the central brain, regulating digestion through its own complex computations. But it is also in constant communication with the head brain through the vagus nerve and the bloodstream, influencing mood, anxiety levels, and even decisions. Research on the microbiome, the community of microorganisms living in the gut, has found associations between its diversity and mental health outcomes, including depression and anxiety. Fermented foods, fiber-rich diets, and reduced antibiotic exposure support microbiome health. The body's path to mental well-being runs, quite literally, through the digestive system as much as through the mind. Physical movement directly improves well-being through multiple brain mechanisms. Exercise increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, enhancing executive function and emotional regulation. It triggers the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, a protein that supports the growth of new neurons and the strengthening of existing neural connections. Regular aerobic activity is consistently among the most effective interventions for depression, with some studies finding it comparable to medication for mild to moderate cases. Even a single 20-minute walk has been shown to improve mood and reduce anxiety for several hours afterward. The body that moves is the body that feels more capable of meeting its day. Movement is not separate from mental well-being. It is one of its primary languages. Oh, the emotion triggered by encountering something vast, complex, or profoundly beautiful, has distinctive effects on well-being. Research by psychologist Daka Keltner and colleagues finds that awe shifts attention away from the self, temporarily quieting the inner narrative and promoting feelings of smallness and connection. People who experience frequent awe report higher life satisfaction, greater generosity, and more prosocial behavior. Also reduces the body's inflammatory response, and it can be accessed through nature, music, art, or even certain kinds of ideas. You do not need a mountain or an ocean. The edge of genuine wonder is available in a night sky, a piece of music that opens something inside you, or a scientific fact that reminds you how improbably and beautifully intricate everything is. Research on sleep and emotional memory has found that REM sleep plays a particular role in emotional processing. During REM sleep, the brain consolidates emotional memories while reducing their associated emotional charge. The hippocampus and amygdala are active, but cortisol and norepinephrine, the stress hormones, are suppressed. This combination allows the brain to replay and integrate emotional experiences without re-traumatizing the nervous system. People deprived of REM sleep show greater amygdala reactivity, lower emotional regulation, and more negative emotional bias the following day. The phrase "sleeping on it is neurologically sound." A night of good sleep does not erase difficult experiences, but it processes them, softens their edges, and makes them more possible to carry. Writing about meaningful experiences and expressing gratitude in written form activates brain regions associated with reward and interpersonal warmth. Research on gratitude letters, in which participants write to someone they appreciate, finds significant boosts in well-being even when the letter is never sent. The act of articulating what matters, of giving conscious shape to what has been quietly good, seems to deepen its impact on the brain. Multiple recent studies have tested different types of gratitude practices, including lists, letters, and mental reflection. And while each produces benefits, those involving genuine interpersonal expression or vivid detail tend to show the most durable effects. Writing 3 specific things that went well today and why they mattered for a single week is among the most replicated interventions in positive psychology. Social support does not just feel good. It changes the body's stress response at the biological level. Research shows that perceived social support, the sense that help is available if needed, reduces cortisol reactivity to stressors even when no help is actually provided. Simply believing that someone is on your side alters how your body responds to threat. This effect has been documented in children, adults, and elderly populations across multiple cultures. The feeling of not being alone, even in imagination, even in memory, reduces the physiological burden of difficulty. Carrying something hard with someone beside you is measurably different from carrying it alone. The people who make you feel safe are, in a quite literal sense, medicine. Exercise in natural environments, sometimes called green exercise, produces greater well-being benefits than the same exercise performed indoors. A single 5-minute walk in a natural setting has been shown to improve mood and self-esteem. Longer exposures produce stronger effects. Researchers believe this may be related to the way natural environments engage the attention system differently than urban or indoor spaces. Attention in nature is held softly, called by interest rather than demand. The brain's directed attention system, which requires effortful focus, gets to rest while the involuntary attention system, drawn by birdsong or water or dappled light, takes over. This gentle, effortless engagement may produce a kind of cognitive restoration that other environments cannot replicate. The world outside was always offering this. It is offering it still. The concept of psychological safety, the belief that you can express yourself and take risks without fear of punishment or humiliation, has emerged in both organizational research and developmental psychology as a fundamental predictor of flourishing. People thrive most in environments where they feel genuinely safe to be imperfect. This applies in workplaces, in families, in friendships, and in the relationship you hold with yourself. The brain under threat conserves resources and narrows possibility. The brain in safety expands, explores, connects, and creates. Building psychological safety for yourself, practicing self-compassion, setting boundaries that protect your integrity, and choosing company that feels genuinely accepting, may be among the most practical acts of well-being available to any human being. Altruism, the act of helping others without expectation of return, activates the brain's reward circuitry in ways that closely resemble receiving a reward yourself. This effect, sometimes called the helper's high, has been documented across many cultures and age groups. Research involving brain imaging shows that charitable giving and volunteering activate the ventral striatum, the same region that responds to food and social rewards. Older adults who volunteer regularly show lower rates of cognitive decline and longer lifespan than non-volunteers, even after controlling for other factors. Giving, it turns out, is one of the most self-serving things a person can quietly do. Not because kindness is selfish, but because human beings were built for it. Meaning-making, the process of finding significance in experience, is not a passive event. It is an active, ongoing neurological process. Research in narrative psychology finds that people who construct coherent, integrated stories from difficult experiences, stories that include both suffering and growth, show higher psychological well-being than those who leave experiences as unprocessed fragments. The brain prefers narrative. It reaches for meaning the way a plant reaches for light. Automatically, persistently. This does not mean difficult things must be forced into purpose. It means that over time, gently, the mind works to understand what it has lived through, and that working toward understanding is itself a form of healing. Take a slow breath. Notice how your body feels right now. A little heavier, a little quieter than when we began. We are exploring the science of the mind that knows how to feel whole. Together, you and I, and everyone listening in the soft dark. There is no rush. There is nowhere to be but here. Let's continue. The science of positive psychology has moved steadily toward understanding flourishing as a dynamic state rather than a fixed trait. Research suggests that well-being is not something you either have or don't have, but something that fluctuates, deepens, strengthens, and sometimes needs tending. On any given day, your access to positive emotion, engagement, meaning, connection, and a sense of accomplishment may be higher or lower. This is not failure. It is the nature of a living system. Knowing that flourishing is something you move toward and return to, rather than a permanent destination you either reach or miss, may be one of the most relieving findings in the entire field. Sleep and well-being share a profound circularity. Not only does good sleep improve well-being, but well-being itself protects sleep. People with higher levels of positive affect fall asleep faster, experience more restorative sleep architecture, and wake fewer times during the night. Research on the broaden and build theory suggests that positive emotions accumulated during the day build the physiological and psychological conditions for better rest. This means that small, consistent efforts toward well-being during waking hours actually change the quality of sleep at night. The day and the night are not separate. They feed each other, quietly, in ways that are only now being fully mapped. Music activates more regions of the brain simultaneously than almost any other human activity, engaging motor systems, emotional processing centers, memory networks, and reward pathways at the same time. Listening to music we find deeply moving triggers the release of dopamine, not just at the moment of pleasure, but also in anticipation of a musical passage we know and love. This anticipatory release, called chills or frisson by researchers, is associated with high levels of emotional openness and may play a role in mood regulation. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences has confirmed this dopamine-music connection directly. The lullabies offered to sleeping children across every culture in human history were not accidental. Sound is one of the most direct paths to the nervous system there is. Touch is one of the fastest-acting well-being interventions available to human beings. The skin contains specialized receptors called C-tactile afferents that respond specifically to gentle, slow stroking, the kind associated with nurturing contact. These receptors send signals directly to brain regions associated with reward and social bonding. A warm hand held, a gentle touch on the arm, a hug that lasts long enough to allow the nervous system to settle. These experiences trigger measurable shifts in oxytocin, cortisol, and heart rate. Research has found that physical warmth, even the sensation of holding a warm cup, can temporarily increase prosocial feelings and reduce social pain. The body has been asking for gentleness since the beginning. It still is. Quietly. Tonight. Research on resilience has consistently found that it is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of certain inner resources that distinguishes people who recover from those who remain stuck. Key predictors of resilience include strong social connections, a sense of purpose, emotional flexibility, self-compassion, and the ability to find small positive meaning even within hardship. Resilience is not a personality trait you are born with or without. It is a capacity that can be built. Studies of resilience-building programs show measurable increases in these factors within weeks of structured practice. What you are doing tonight, giving your nervous system space to rest, allowing your mind to receive something gentle, is itself part of building that capacity. The science of awe points to something that may be, from an evolutionary perspective, a very old human adaptation. Encounters with vastness, with phenomena that exceed our current mental frameworks, appear to temporarily dissolve the boundaries of the individual self. Research finds that awe increases feelings of connection to others and to something larger than oneself. It also increases intellectual humility, the recognition that there is more than you know. People in awe are more likely to help strangers, more likely to act in accordance with values, and more likely to report feeling that their lives have meaning. Awe is available in the night sky above your home, in the fact of consciousness itself, in the simple strangeness of being alive and breathing and here. Researchers studying the neuroscience of hope have found that hope activates the orbitofrontal cortex and related areas involved in planning, reward anticipation, and positive future thinking. People who score high on hope measures show different patterns of neural activity when imagining the future, engaging more resourcefully with possibility and less reactively with obstacle. Hope, in this sense, is cognitive architecture. It is the brain's way of keeping paths open. Research by psychologist Charles Snyder found that hope scores are a better predictor of academic performance than intelligence test scores. In some populations, the ability to keep a path in mind, to believe that effort connects to outcome, may be one of the most underrated capacities in human psychology. The circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour biological clock running in nearly every cell of the human body, regulates not just sleep and waking, but also mood, cognitive performance, metabolism, immune function, and hormone release. When the circadian system is aligned with the light-dark cycle of the natural environment, well-being is supported at a systemic, cellular level. When it is disrupted by artificial light at night, irregular schedules, or jet lag, nearly every system in the body is affected. The simple acts of going to bed and rising at consistent times, getting morning light, and dimming artificial light in the evening, are among the most physiologically nourishing well-being practices available, and among the least discussed. The body keeps time. Giving it a reliable rhythm is a form of respect. Research on forgiveness has found consistent links to improved well-being, reduced anxiety, and better cardiovascular health. Forgiveness is not condoning. It is not reconciliation. It is, neurologically, the release of the rumination and stress activation associated with sustained resentment. Studies using physiological measures find that harboring unforgiveness maintains elevated heart rate and cortisol. Genuine forgiveness, particularly when it is self-directed, shifts the nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance, People who score higher on forgiveness measures sleep better, report greater well-being, and recover more quickly from adversity. Forgiveness, it turns out, is something you do primarily for the body you live in. The person you forgive may never know. Your nervous system always does. We are halfway through our journey tonight, and already a picture is emerging. Well-being is not luck. It is not personality. It is not reserved for people with easier lives or quieter minds. It is a capacity the human nervous system carries and can develop, rooted in chemistry, shaped by practice, nourished by connection, meaning, and rest. The science points in one direction, consistently, across decades and cultures. Small, consistent acts of inner gentleness produce lasting change in the structure of the brain and the experience of living. You are already doing one of those acts right now. By resting, by allowing yourself to be here, quiet, listening, letting something good move through you without demanding anything in return. Consider this. For a moment, every memory you carry from this year is right now being processed and sorted while you rest. Your brain is deciding what to keep, what to soften, what to release. It has been doing this for every year you have lived, every difficult thing you have carried, every good thing you have held, every version of yourself you have moved through and outgrown. Your brain has been working on all of it, quietly, every night, for your entire life. You do not have to solve anything tonight. The work is already happening. Now we continue the journey. Psychological well-being, as defined by researcher Carol Riff, includes 6 distinct components: autonomy, environmental mastery, personal growth, positive relationships, purpose in life, and self-acceptance. Research across diverse populations confirms that these 6 dimensions cluster together into a coherent portrait of flourishing. Notably, self-acceptance, including acceptance of one's own complexity and imperfection, consistently appears as foundational. Not pride, not achievement, simply the quiet willingness to be the person you are, in the body you have, carrying the history you carry. From there, everything else becomes more possible. Research on what makes people feel most alive points consistently toward activities that combine novelty, social connection, and a sense of personal agency. When people describe their most vivid, positive memories, they rarely describe passive entertainment. They describe moments of full engagement, of genuine presence, of feeling that they mattered in some small way to what was happening. The brain is not designed for passive reception. It lights up when it is participating, contributing, noticing with its full attention. Even something as simple as really listening to another person, really being present with them, activates the neural systems associated with deep reward. The quality of your attention is the quality of your experience. Sleep itself is a form of emotional regulation. During the night, the brain does not simply consolidate memories. It emotionally reprocesses them. The same event experienced during sleep and during waking produces very different neural patterns. During sleep, particularly during REM, the emotional weight of experiences is gradually separated from their factual content. The memory remains. The raw distress diminishes. Researchers call this process emotional overnight therapy. It is why things often feel more manageable in the morning, not because the situation has changed, but because the brain has done the quiet work of adjusting the register in which the experience is held. Curiosity is reliably associated with higher levels of well-being across age groups and cultures. People who approach their lives and the world around them with genuine curiosity, not anxious searching, but open, unhurried interest, report greater life satisfaction, more positive emotions, and deeper relationships. Neuroscientist Todd Kashdan has spent decades studying the science of curiosity, finding that it broadens exploration, deepens social bonds, and appears to buffer against depression and anxiety. Curiosity and anxiety can feel similar from the inside, that same slight quickening of attention. But curiosity leans forward with openness. Anxiety leans back with caution. The difference, subtle as it sometimes is, matters for the quality of a life. Research on purpose in life has found that having a clear sense of why you are here, what matters, what you are working toward or protecting or contributing to, is associated with longer lifespan, better sleep, reduced risk of cognitive decline, and higher reported well-being. Studies of adults over 70 found that those with higher purpose scores were significantly more likely to still be alive 9 years later. Purpose does not require grand achievement. It can be found in raising a child, tending a garden, being reliably kind in a small corner of the world. The scale of purpose does not seem to matter as much as its presence, the feeling that you are here for something, however modest, anchors the nervous system in ways that other comforts cannot. The social baseline theory, proposed by psychologist James Cohen, suggests that the human brain evolved to treat social connection as a kind of metabolic efficiency strategy. When we are with trusted others, the brain distributes the computational burden of navigating the world. We do not have to monitor threat alone. We do not have to regulate our emotions alone. Having safe people nearby literally reduces the brain's workload, allowing it to function more efficiently and with less metabolic cost. This may explain why being around the right people feels restful in a way that solitude, even pleasant solitude, sometimes does not. The body was built for accompaniment. Safety in the presence of another person is not psychological weakness. It is evolutionary design. Gratitude changes the body's inflammatory markers. Research on patients with heart disease found that those who practiced gratitude showed measurably lower levels of inflammatory biomarkers and higher heart rate variability, a measure of autonomic nervous system flexibility, than control groups. The researchers suggested that gratitude may reduce the chronic low-level inflammatory activation associated with negative emotional states. Inflammation is increasingly understood as a shared biological pathway underlying many conditions once thought to be primarily psychological or purely physical, including depression, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline. The mind and the body are not separate systems with separate health needs. They share the same chemistry. The brain's default mode network and the task-positive network maintain a reciprocal relationship. When one is active, the other typically quiets. But in people with higher well-being, these networks communicate more fluidly, suggesting a more integrated and flexible mind. This integration allows for a creative, reflective inner life that does not interfere with present moment engagement. Long-term meditators show distinctive patterns of this neural integration, along with reduced activity in the regions associated with self-referential worry and increased activity in regions associated with equanimity and open awareness. The mind can be still and active at the same time, peaceful and present, rested and awake. These states, once thought to be in conflict, exist together in the flourishing brain. Hope, purpose, and meaning appear to share overlapping neural circuits in the brain, all involving the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and related regions associated with self-projection into the future. This may explain why these qualities so often occur together and support each other. When people lose one, they often lose some of the others. When one is restored, the others often begin to return. Research on purpose-driven programs in clinical settings finds that building even a modest sense of future orientation, giving people something to move toward, can produce measurable improvements in both mental and physical health. The brain is oriented toward the future by design. Giving it a good one to move toward is, quite literally, therapeutic. Research on sleep architecture finds that the proportion of deep, slow-wave sleep in a given night predicts how emotionally regulated a person feels the following day, more reliably than total sleep time alone. During slow-wave sleep, the brain consolidates declarative memory and engages in the deepest phases of cellular repair. People who regularly reach sufficient slow-wave sleep show lower cortisol reactivity, steadier mood across the day, and higher scores on measures of pro-social behavior. The depth of sleep matters, not just its duration. What you allow yourself tonight goes deeper than you may realize. Research on meaning-making after adversity has found that post-traumatic growth, the development of new strengths, perspectives, or connections following a difficult experience, is a real and measurable phenomenon. It occurs in a substantial portion of people who have faced serious life challenges. This does not mean suffering has a silver lining that must be found. It means the human capacity for meaning-making is so fundamental that it often generates something new even from what has been broken. Psychologists emphasize that this growth is not universal, not required, and not evidence that the difficulty was in any sense good. But it is evidence of something worth knowing. The mind is a creator as well as a processor. It can find not just meaning, but new life in the unexpected places. The neuroscience of kindness suggests that acts of generosity produce a warm glow effect, a subjective feeling of well-being that accompanies pro-social behavior. Research using functional brain imaging has confirmed that this feeling corresponds to real activation in the brain's reward pathways. Importantly, the effect appears in both the giver and the receiver. And even witnessing kindness, observing another person behave generously or compassionately, triggers what researchers call elevation, a warm, open feeling associated with inspiration and pro-social motivation. Kindness propagates. A single act can ripple outward through the people who observe it, generating shifts in mood and motivation in those who were not even directly involved. You are part of an ecology of care, whether or not you can always see its effects. Music's effect on the brain is profound enough that researchers have begun exploring its therapeutic potential for conditions ranging from depression and anxiety to memory disorders. Research published in Neuroscience journals confirms that familiar, personally meaningful music activates the medial prefrontal cortex and autobiographical memory networks with unusual reliability, even in people whose memory has been significantly impaired by neurological conditions. Music appears to access emotional and procedural memory through pathways that remain intact even when other forms of memory are compromised. The song that meant something to you at 17 still does. The melody your grandmother hummed is woven into neural tissue that no amount of time fully unravels. Researchers studying the biology of well-being have found that a sense of belonging, the quiet knowledge that you are part of something and that you matter to someone, has measurable effects on immune function, inflammation, and cellular aging. Studies examining telomere length, a biological marker of cellular aging, have found that chronic loneliness is associated with shorter telomeres, meaning people who feel consistently isolated show cellular signs of accelerated aging. By contrast, people in close, trusting relationships show protective effects at the cellular level. The feeling of being wanted, of having a place, of mattering to at least one other person, reaches all the way down to the very chemistry of your cells. One of the quietest and most consistent findings in well-being research is this: people tend to overestimate how much major life events will affect their long-term happiness. They overestimate the lasting joy of promotions, acquisitions, and achievements. They also overestimate the lasting pain of setbacks and losses. The emotional immune system, as Daniel Gilbert has called it, works constantly and largely invisibly to stabilize our experience, finding meaning in what has happened, adjusting expectations, rebuilding a workable story. This system is not perfect, but it is quietly reliable. You have survived everything that has happened to you. That is not a small fact. That is the shape of your resilience, demonstrated daily. The science of self-determination theory, developed by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, identifies 3 basic psychological needs that, when met, consistently predict well-being. Autonomy, the sense of acting from choice rather than coercion. Competence, the sense of being capable and effective. And relatedness, the sense of connection to others. When these 3 needs are met, people flourish, regardless of whether they are rich or poor, young or old, in demanding careers or quiet domestic lives. When they are unmet, well-being declines, often even in the presence of external comfort and success. The 3 needs are worth sitting with quietly. Which feels most nourished right now? Which feels most in need of gentle attention? Research on acceptance, particularly from mindfulness-based therapeutic traditions, has found that the willingness to allow difficult thoughts and feelings to be present without fighting them is associated with significantly better psychological outcomes than avoidance or suppression. Paradoxically, trying to not think about something tends to make it more intrusive, a phenomenon researchers call ironic process theory, whereas allowing a thought to be present without engaging with it, labeling it, or following its thread tends to reduce its power over time. The mind that knows how to let things pass gently is fundamentally different from the mind that knows only how to fight or flee. You can learn the gentle way. In fact, lying here, doing exactly this, you already are. Researchers have found that spending money on experiences produces more lasting well-being than spending on material goods. The reason appears to be that experiences become part of your narrative identity, woven into the story of who you are and what you have known. They are harder to compare to others, harder to have tainted by adaptation, and more likely to involve social connection. Material goods, while pleasurable, tend to fade more quickly into the background of ordinary life. The implication is gentle. The things most worth investing in are often the things you cannot own. A conversation that goes somewhere real. An afternoon you gave yourself permission to be fully present in. A moment of genuine wonder, received with open hands. Research on the relationship between sleep and creativity suggests that REM sleep in particular facilitates what scientists call broad associative thinking, the ability to find unexpected connections between distant ideas. During REM sleep, the hippocampus replays memories in a loose, associative pattern, and the prefrontal cortex is relatively quiet. This creates conditions in which remote associations, the kind that feel like sudden insights, can form more readily than in the focused, sequential thinking of waking. Many significant creative breakthroughs have been attributed to the hypnagogic state just before full sleep, the threshold between waking and dreaming. The relaxed mind is not a less effective mind. It is differently effective, in ways that pure focus cannot replicate. Positive psychology researchers have distinguished between hedonic adaptation, the tendency to return to emotional baseline after positive events, and what they call hedonic flexibility, the ability to find new sources of positive experience when familiar ones fade. People with higher hedonic flexibility tend to show more sustained well-being over time. They are more likely to notice new pleasures, to find meaning in changed circumstances, to build new connections when old ones shift. This flexibility appears to be partly a learned capacity, cultivated through curiosity, attention, and the willingness to be surprised. Well-being is not about staying in the same good place. It is about knowing how to find good places as the map of your life keeps changing. Brain researchers have found that the practice of loving-kindness meditation, in which people deliberately cultivate feelings of warmth and goodwill toward themselves and others, strengthens activity in the left prefrontal cortex and related regions associated with positive affect. Research by neuroscientist Richard Davidson found that even a short loving-kindness practice shifts the ratio of left to right prefrontal activation in measurable ways. Over time, practitioners show increased empathy, reduced anxiety, and greater social connection. The brain that practices warmth toward others becomes warmer. The brain that practices gentleness toward itself becomes gentler. Not because the world has changed, but because the brain literally has. Time perspective, the habitual way a person orients toward the past, present, and future, has been found to influence well-being significantly. Research by Philip Zimbardo and John Boyd identifies several time perspectives, including past positive, past negative, present hedonistic, present fatalistic, and future-oriented. A balanced time perspective, one that can appreciate a positive past, engage with a pleasurable present, and maintain an optimistic orientation toward the future, is most reliably associated with flourishing. No single time perspective alone is optimal. The capacity to move fluidly between past, present, and future, drawing from each what it has to offer, may be one of the subtler skills of a well-lived human life. Research on savoring, the conscious, deliberate extension of positive experience, has found that it amplifies well-being in ways that ordinary, passive, positive experience does not. When people take a moment to consciously notice and appreciate something good, to slow down and let it be real, the brain processes it more deeply and stores it more richly. Savoring can be practiced retrospectively, through recalling and re-experiencing positive memories. Currently, through pausing and attending fully, or prospectively, through anticipating something good. The researchers who study savoring find that it is one of the few well-being practices that produces immediate shifts in mood alongside more durable benefits to positive emotion. The art of letting good things be good, fully and unhurriedly, is both a pleasure and a skill. Researchers studying the neuroscience of social trust have found that the feeling of being understood by another person, of having your experience accurately reflected back to you, activates reward circuits in the brain in distinctive ways. Being seen, genuinely seen, is experienced by the brain as something valuable, something to seek, something that shapes the subsequent quality of the interaction and the relationship. By contrast, feeling misunderstood activates threat-related circuits. The brain is constantly monitoring for understanding, and it knows the difference between being managed and being truly met. The moments when someone really listens, when you feel truly received, are not small moments. They are among the most neurologically significant experiences a social animal can have. The answer to the question we began with tonight is becoming clear. Well-being is not something that happens to you. It is something your brain actively builds, through chemistry, through practice, through connection, through the quality of what you attend to and how. The left prefrontal cortex, the vagus nerve, the gut microbiome, the default mode network, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and dozens of other systems are all involved in the ongoing project of human flourishing. It is not simple, but it is not mysterious. The science of well-being, gathered across decades and cultures, points consistently to a small number of things: rest, meaning, connection, movement, kindness given and received, and the gentle practice of noticing what is right. You already know all of this. Your body always has. You might be noticing now that you are quite tired. That's exactly right. Let yourself breathe slowly. Think about this. Sleep is the one experience that cannot be forced. The harder you try to sleep, the further it moves. It arrives only when you stop reaching for it. This moment, right now, is that moment. You have stopped reaching. The last facts are waiting, soft and unhurried. And as you listen, you need hold nothing. Simply let yourself be carried. We're almost there now. The sleeping brain is not resting. It is working. Memory consolidation, emotional processing, cellular repair, and the clearing of metabolic waste through the glymphatic system all occur primarily during sleep. Deep sleep, in particular, is when the brain's waste clearance pathways become most active. Cerebrospinal fluid moves more freely through the spaces between cells during sleep, washing away metabolic byproducts that accumulate during waking. This may help explain the cognitive clarity that follows a genuinely restorative night. Sleep is not an interruption of life. It is one of its most essential processes. Kindness, given freely and without expectation, consistently elevates mood in both the giver and, remarkably, in observers. Even performing a single intentional act of kindness per day for 1 week produces measurable increases in well-being. The effect is amplified when the act involves some degree of effort or sacrifice, and when it is varied across different recipients and forms. The brain registers generosity as meaningful, and registers meaning as valuable. A life oriented around giving, even quietly, even in small ways, is a life the brain tends to experience as worth living. Research on the experience of wonder confirms that it is available at almost any scale. Children experience wonder frequently because they encounter more things for the first time. Adults can cultivate wonder by deliberately seeking novelty, by approaching the familiar with genuinely open attention, by pausing with a question rather than moving past it. The neuroscience of wonder overlaps significantly with the neuroscience of awe. Both involve a softening of the self, an opening of attention, a brief and beautiful release of the pressure to know and control. Both produce measurable well-being. The world offers wonder generously. The skill is simply in receiving it. Sleep and creativity are deeply intertwined in ways that extend beyond REM dreaming. The hypnagogic state, the drowsy threshold between waking and sleep, appears to be particularly generative for creative insight. Leonardo da Vinci is said to have napped while holding a small stone in his hand, so that as he drifted to sleep and his grip loosened, the sound of it dropping would wake him at precisely the boundary between waking and dreaming. Salvador Dali described a similar practice with a key. Modern research has confirmed that brief napping at this threshold, or lingering in the drowsy state before full sleep, reliably produces novel associations and creative insights. You are, right now, at one of the most creative edges of human consciousness. The autonomic nervous system has two primary modes: the sympathetic fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic rest and digest state. Most modern lives spend too much time in sympathetic activation. The body does not distinguish between a physical threat and a social worry. Both activate the same ancient system. The practice of deliberately inviting parasympathetic activation through slow breathing, through warmth, through stillness, through the release of held tension, is not passive. It is an active instruction to the nervous system. And the nervous system listens. It always does. Right now. with each breath slightly slower than the last. You are giving it that instruction. Research on emotion regulation finds that the simple act of labeling an emotion, naming what you feel, rather than being lost inside it, reduces activity in the amygdala and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex. Putting feelings into words, even silently, activates a different and more regulated brain state. This is why expressive writing, therapy, and honest conversation with trusted others often produce measurable emotional relief. The emotional brain calms when the language brain engages with it. You don't have to fix what you feel. You only have to name it, quietly, without judgment, and feel the naming itself provide a small measure of relief. Researchers have found that people who regularly experience what they call quiet, positive emotions, contentment, serenity, peacefulness, as distinct from the more activated forms of happiness, tend to show particularly strong and durable well-being benefits. These quiet, positive states, which may not feel dramatic or significant in the moment, appear to have deep restorative effects on the nervous system. They lower cortisol, improve immune markers, and predict better long-term health outcomes than excitement or elation. The unspectacular goodness of an ordinary, peaceful moment is not less valuable than joy. Science suggests it may, in some ways, be more. The body keeps time through circadian rhythms embedded in nearly every organ and tissue. The clock in your cells is linked to the light-dark cycle of the planet, synchronized daily by morning light entering through the retina. When you allow yourself the rhythm of natural sleep and waking, you are participating in a biological relationship between your body and the rotation of the Earth that has existed for billions of years. You are held, quite literally, in the turning of the world. That is not a metaphor. That is chronobiology. Research on the power of small acts reveals that microscopic moments of well-being, a breath taken consciously, a smile exchanged with a stranger, a moment of genuine gratitude noticed and held, have cumulative effects on the nervous system and the brain that are disproportionate to their apparent scale. The broaden and build theory explains this. Even small positive experiences, when genuinely felt rather than performed, initiate cascades of neurochemical and neural change that compound over time. Nothing is too small to matter. The gentleness you offer yourself tonight is already doing its quiet work. The science of sleep satisfaction finds that how people feel about their sleep, their subjective sense of its quality and sufficiency, influences well-being independently of objective sleep measures. People who feel they have slept well tend to perform better, feel more positive, and make healthier choices the following day, even when objective measures like total sleep time are held constant. This suggests that the relationship you hold with your sleep, accepting it rather than fighting it, allowing the night its own intelligence, may matter as much as the sleep itself. You are resting. Whatever form that takes tonight, it is enough. Researchers studying post-traumatic growth have found that the qualities most associated with long-term thriving after adversity include a trusted person to share the experience with, the ability to construct a narrative that makes some sense of what happened, and the capacity to find even small sources of meaning in the aftermath. The mind does not require that hard things be good. It only requires that they be integratable, that they fit, however imperfectly, into the story of a self that continues forward, the willingness to keep going, to wake the next morning and find something worth attending to, is itself a form of courage so ordinary it is rarely recognized as such. Your heart rate variability, a measure of the subtle variations in time between heartbeats, is one of the most sensitive indicators of nervous system health currently available to researchers. High heart rate variability indicates a flexible, responsive nervous system, one that can shift between activation and rest as the situation requires. Low heart rate variability is associated with stress, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, and reduced emotional regulation. Activities that improve heart rate variability include rhythmic breathing, yoga, aerobic exercise, positive social engagement, and sleep. Tonight, in the simple act of resting deeply, you are doing one of the most measurable things possible for the health of your heart. Researchers studying what makes life feel worth living have found, across cultures and ages, a consistent answer. It is not comfort or ease. It is not the absence of difficulty. It is something closer to presence. The quality of being genuinely in one's life, inhabiting it rather than enduring it, noticing it rather than managing it. People describe their most meaningful moments not as the painless ones, but as the ones in which they felt most fully themselves, most genuinely connected, most completely here. Presence, it turns out, is the container in which everything else that matters takes place. The science of sleep's role in emotional well-being suggests that each night of rest is a kind of recalibration. The emotional weight of the day is processed, sorted, and gently redistributed. Fears are recontextualized. Joys are integrated. Memories find their places. The brain that wakes after genuine rest is not the same brain that went to sleep. It is slightly more ordered, slightly more ready, slightly more able to receive the next day. You will wake tomorrow different from who you are right now. A little lighter, a little more available to what is good. Researchers have found that people who maintain a sense of humor, particularly the ability to find lightness in difficulty without minimizing its reality, show higher well-being, stronger immune function, and greater resilience under stress than those who lack this quality. Humor, in this sense, is not silliness or avoidance. It is a form of cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, to see the absurdity and the weight of something at once. The gentle laugh at one's own circumstances is not giving up. It is often the most sophisticated response the nervous system has available. The relationship between sleep and social connection is closer than commonly understood. Research shows that people who are sleep-deprived tend to perceive more social threat, withdraw from others more readily, and experience reduced empathy and prosocial motivation. They also report feeling lonelier after poor sleep, even if their social circumstances have not changed. Sleep, it seems, does not just restore the body. It restores the social brain, the capacity to feel genuinely connected, to want company, to feel safe with others, is partly a function of how well rested the nervous system is. One more reason that the night you give yourself tonight is a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone who will be near you tomorrow. Research on meaning suggests that it is found most reliably in 3 places: in connection to other people, in purposeful work or contribution, and in transcendence, the sense of being part of something larger than oneself. Transcendence can come from religion, from nature, from art, from science, from parenthood, from love. It does not require a particular form. It requires only the experience of being briefly relieved of the weight of the individual self, of touching something that extends beyond the ordinary boundaries of a single life. That experience, in whatever form it takes, tends to leave people more at peace. The glymphatic system, first described in 2013, is the brain's dedicated waste removal pathway, active primarily during sleep. What makes it biologically unusual is a process observed in the sleeping brain. During deep sleep, brain cells appear to contract, creating wider channels between them through which cerebrospinal fluid can move, carrying metabolic byproducts away from neural tissue. Whether this precise mechanism operates in humans at the same scale as in animal models is still being studied, but the principle is increasingly well supported. Sleep is not merely the absence of waking. It is an active maintenance state unlike any other available to human biology. The brain that rests thoroughly is a brain that is genuinely cleaning house. Researchers studying emotional intelligence, the ability to perceive, understand, use, and regulate emotions effectively, have found strong links between emotional intelligence and well-being across the lifespan. People with higher emotional intelligence tend to form more satisfying relationships, recover from stress more quickly, and report greater overall life satisfaction. Emotional intelligence is not a fixed trait. It can be learned, practiced, and deepened at any age. Simply paying attention to your own emotional states with curiosity rather than judgment, noticing what arises and naming it gently, is one of the most accessible emotional intelligence practices available. You are practicing it right now, in the dark, in the quiet. Research on the long-term cultivation of well-being suggests that the most durable changes come not from dramatic interventions, but from the accumulation of small, consistent habits of attention, kindness, and self-care. Sleep, meaningful work, genuine connection, time in nature, movement, gratitude noticed and expressed, moments of genuine presence. None of these are complicated. All of them are, in the business of ordinary life, somehow easy to defer. The science, gathered across decades of careful research, simply keeps pointing back to these same things. Simple things, quiet things, things you already know, somewhere beneath the noise of the day, that your life is asking for. Your brain has roughly 86 billion neurons, connected by approximately 100 trillion synaptic connections. These connections are not fixed. They are changing right now, as you listen, as you rest, as words move through you and find their quiet places. Everything you attend to influences them. Every night of sleep reshapes them. Every act of kindness, every moment of genuine presence, every time you choose gentleness over harshness, with yourself or with others, leaves a trace in those connections. The person you are becoming is being written in those traces tonight. In the dark, in the rest. In this, researchers studying the science of happiness have found that our deepest well-being is almost never located in the future we are reaching for. It is almost never located in the past we are grieving. It is available in a form of presence that is difficult to force, but possible to invite. The invitation arrives when we set down what we are carrying long enough to notice where we actually are. Here, in a body that is breathing, in a night that is quiet, in a moment that has nothing in it except exactly what is here. This is where well-being lives, not someday. Now, sleep is perhaps the most underrated well-being practice known to science. Not because it needs to be earned, but because it is already available, already happening, already doing its quiet and profound work in the background of every human life. While you sleep, your immune system repairs tissue, your brain clears its own debris, your memories find their places, your emotional weight is processed, and the chemistry of tomorrow is being prepared tonight. You do not have to do anything for this to happen. You only have to allow it. Researchers have found that the experience of being loved and the experience of being genuinely kind activate overlapping brain regions. Giving and receiving warmth are, neurologically, more similar than they are different. This may be why people who are generous in spirit so often seem to carry an inner warmth that has little to do with how much they have received. The capacity for well-being, the science consistently suggests, lives less in what comes toward you than in what moves through you, in what you allow yourself to feel, in what you are willing to offer, in how open the channel is between your inner life and everything around you. And here we arrive. 100 facts about the science of well-being. The answer was always already inside the question. The brain that learns to notice the good begins to see more of it. The nervous system that practices rest becomes more capable of rest. The self that treats itself with kindness develops more capacity for kindness. Well-being is not a destination the fortunate reach. It is a direction that is always available, a gentle leaning toward what is real and warm and present and true. You know this direction. You were moving in it the moment you chose to lie down tonight. To be still, to let something good move through you without asking it to stay. The science has only named what the body always knew, and so our quiet journey through the science of well-being comes gently to a close. We began with 4 small molecules: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, and discovered that what we call happiness has a chemistry, a structure, a biological address inside the body. We learned that gratitude, practiced for as little as a week, can measurably shift the brain's threat response, and that extending sleep by just 46 minutes a night was enough, in one carefully measured study, to raise gratitude scores significantly. We found that the vagus nerve runs the length of you, from brainstem to belly, always available, always listening. We followed the science of awe and found it dissolves the self into something larger. We traced the arc from loneliness to connection and confirmed, one more time, that we were built for each other, and we arrived at sleep, at this, at now, the whole science, 100 facts wide, pointed to the same quiet truth. Well-being is not something the fortunate stumble into. It is something the attentive build, slowly, tenderly, one small act of presence at a time. The science of well-being reminds us that flourishing is not exceptional. It is native. It is already present in the structure of the brain, in the chemistry of the body, in the ancient wiring for connection, meaning, and rest. Much of what we need is already inside us, asking only to be noticed, practiced, and allowed. By pausing to notice, we find that the threshold between ordinary and extraordinary is thinner than we thought. The extraordinary is here, in the simple act of choosing to be at peace. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can. As deep as possible, think about connection. The 4 molecules we began with tonight move through every human body on Earth right now, in every language, in every darkness, in every resting mind. Your chemistry is not yours alone. It is shared across every person who has ever lain down and hoped for a better day. You are part of an unbroken thread of people choosing, as you are choosing now, to rest, to receive, to allow the good to reach them. Let your entire being dissolve into that thread, into the soft continuity of all the resting minds that breathe alongside you tonight. Across time, across distance, across difference. No boundaries left now, only peace. Prepare for deep sleep. If this gentle journey through the science of the mind brought you some peace tonight, a soft like or subscribe helps another tired mind find its way here. Someone right now is lying in the dark, looking for exactly what you just found. One quiet tap, one sleepy soul at a time. The dopamine pathways that pull us forward are still tonight, resting for tomorrow. Your only task right now is to let go of the reaching. You traveled inward tonight, through corridors of chemistry and connection and the quiet science of what it means to feel whole. You touched the architecture of flourishing and found it closer than you expected. You can allow these thoughts of well-being to fade now, like the last warmth of a conversation that meant something. Not gone. Simpson settled into you, leaving only the still, warm calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all the neuroscience, all the wonder, all the quiet understanding you have gathered tonight has a weight of its own, and it is simply, gently, holding you. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way the glymphatic system carries what is no longer needed away, without effort, without announcement, leaving only clarity behind, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the brain that builds well-being will still be building. The chemistry of flourishing will still be flowing. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, sleepy soul. And remember, the mind that learns to rest well, learns to live well. Good night.